And one of the nights, I think it was Saturday night, we went right from 8 in the evening to about 4, 4:30 in the morning. One would expect that we are trying to get out of the current electricity shortages that we are facing with the generation of more electricity and the creation of renewable energy. But what is the true cost of electricity when large power projects are built and connected to the grid sequentially and the renewable energy independent producers procurement program kicks off? I'm joined online now by Mr. Clyde Mallinson, a geologist who has previously lectured on Earth history. Good morning, sir. Welcome to the program.
Thank you very much, and good morning to you and your listeners. Salam.
Thank you so much. Now, tell us the generation of electricity. As the years are ticking by, it seems to be getting more and more expensive.
Yes, well, one of the things one has to realize is that previously the Eskom coal fleet was essentially paid off. And so it was like having an old car where your expenses were just maintenance and petrol and servicing, but you didn't have to pay anyone for actually leasing the car. As soon as one then started building new power stations, one had to raise additional capital. And when you have a new car versus an old car, 2/3 about of your costs are paying off the car, whereas only 1/3 is running the car. So we were in line to have increases, but perhaps not to the extent that we have had them.
And the introduction of renewable energy to the grid, has it made any significant difference to the amount of energy we are producing and perhaps even the cost at which that energy comes?
Yeah, it's made a significant difference. It's actually increased the cost, because when we started with the renewable program, the cost of renewables was still in excess of the cost of that old paid off coal fleet. So the early rounds of the renewable procurement were de facto more expensive. But the interesting thing is that if you compare them to the costs of, let's say, Medupi, which is a good proxy. Medupi's got 6 different units that each come on sequentially. And by now, we should have had at least 6 rounds of renewable energy procurement. We've only had 4 because the program was stalled. So it turns out that the 6 units of Medupi can nicely be contrasted with the 6 rounds of the renewable energy. In the case of Medupi, the first electricity to come online from Medupi cost us nearly 10 Rand a kilowatt hour, because we had to build the whole plant with all of its services and everything, and then we only had 1 unit producing. So it was like building a garage or a facility for maintaining a car, but only having 1 car that was being servicing. So it was expensive. So the first rounds of the renewable energy were also expensive. And then with Medupi, as the different units have come online, the cost per kilowatt hour has dropped from about 10 Rand, and it's now at about 1.50 Rand. In the case of the renewables, the first rounds of solar certainly started at about 2.80 Rand, and wind at about 1.50 Rand. And as we've added additional amounts of wind and solar at lower and lower prices, the average price of wind and solar has come down because the new rounds have been cheaper. And I did a quick study where I looked and said, if we had built enough wind and solar to equal the output that we will eventually get from Medupi, these are the following answers. When Medupi's finished, it will cost us 1.32 Rand, more or less, per kilowatt hour. If we had built enough solar, or if we do build enough solar to have the same output as Medupi, it will cost us 95 cents. And if we build enough wind to have the same output as Medupi, it will cost us 90 cents. Now, I just want to make it very clear, the 95 and the 90 cents include those early expensive rounds. It's not divorced from those rounds. If we built brand new wind and brand new solar now, without worrying about what we paid for those earlier rounds, we can do it at about 60 cents for both wind and solar. So it comes in at about less than half the price of new coal.
Now, private producers of electricity have been going the renewable route, and as we can see there, the price is significantly less in terms of the costs. Why has government not looked at that as a possible energy supplier, coming up with their own renewable energy program? Is there such?
Yes, there's been some reluctance on the part of government to allow that to happen, and I actually have some sympathy for them. One of the problems with just looking for very cheap renewable places the onus on Eskom of delivering to you when there's a lack of renewable. So let's just imagine that we buy wind or solar for 60 cents, and that one day the sun's not shining or the wind's not blowing, and we go to Eskom and say, well, today we would like to buy from you. You can see then that Eskom would have to have had available spare capacity to be able to supply you. So I think the South African man in the street needs to understand that the real cost of electricity of renewables is round about R1, because when we build wind or solar, we need to build storage facilities to be able to deliver a reliable product when the wind's not blowing or the sun's not shining. And if you group together the cost of the wind and the cost of the solar and the cost of the storage, it comes out at about R1 a kilowatt hour for a wholesale price. That's before it's been delivered. So think of it like the pizza before it's been delivered to wherever you're ordering it from. And one needs to appreciate that. The good news, I think it's good news, is that if we built new coal today, the factory gate wholesale price would be about R1.50. So the renewables are about 30% cheaper than a build of new coal. But the fact is that the price of electricity that people tout for renewables of maybe 50 or 55 cents is just not possible, because it needs to be augmented with storage to turn it into a reliable product. As anyone knows, if anyone's put solar on their roof,
You need the batteries.
it's
to
great
benefit.
while the sun's shining, but you need a battery if you want to still have power at night. So it's that simple.
Mr. Clyde Mallinson, geologist who lectured at on Earth History. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thanks. I hope I've managed to clarify that situation.
Absolutely.
All right. Thanks. Bye.
Massive explosions have rocked Lebanon. Homes destroyed, hundreds of people missing, and many more have passed on. Over 300,000 people